In that time of the United States, the war in Vietnam was building up bigger and bigger and bigger. The military was growing leaps and bounds every week. And therefore the need for more physicians, more dentists, more clergymen, right across the board, veterinarians even. And so the rules were passed that made everybody in graduate school sign a healing arts deferment. So if you went to medical school or pharmacy school or whatever school, in order to get by your local draft board, you had to register where you were going, you had to sign in every year, and you were given what they called a healing arts deferment, which means they would not drag you into the draft while you were in school. As soon as you were out, you were eligible, and if they needed you, you went. So the overwhelming majority of us went into the Army Dental Corps. The opportunity came to sign up to go to Vietnam, which was to me it was where things were happening, it was where things were most curious. You heard about it in the news, and not being part of it didn't rub me the right way. So I volunteered, and of course I went. When I was interviewed, arriving in Vietnam, the head dentist, if you will, a commanding general, interviews you one by one. The general interviews the captain. And he said, "I see you wanted to go to jump school." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, I've got a deal I want to make with you." And I said, well, okay, beware. He said, "I've got a spot that needs a dentist right now, and it's with the 101st. Now, you're not going to be airborne qualified, but if you do that job for me, I'll put you through airborne school here in Vietnam. You got a deal." So up to the 101st I went. This was right at the time of the first Tet Offensive. But so we went through that. We had a bit of action with 101st. And 3 months there, and I came back, went to jump school with the 5th Special Forces in Cam Ranh Bay. And to sum up the whole training, there is no more fun on this earth that you can have than jumping out of a perfectly good airplane. It's just amazing. And I wound up making 16 jumps in Vietnam. We were a first aid, so people came wounded from the field to us. We patched them up, we plugged them up, we put more fluids into them, and then moved them on to a hospital. That exercise alone, I wound up doing a fair amount of medic work when the casualties came in and they were overwhelming, like 10 come at a time, you have room for 6. You wind up kneeling down on the outside trying to do something for someone. Well, I was the least trained in that field, so I got the least wounded in that situation, which didn't bother me at all. But those are the kinds of things the military prepared you for. The schooling at Fort Sam was very pointed to first aid, and the routine of assessment and stopping bleeding, getting fluids up, and doing the necessary checklist to try to determine what does a patient need. So yeah, I think I felt well prepared to go. I think at the time you don't think you're well prepared to go. You definitely have some butterflies, but after some time goes by and you gain even more experience, you go from doing dentistry in a dental clinic or operatory to delivering dentistry in a tent with a dirt floor, in a chair that's not adjustable. And you have one choice, and that's to bend over the patient. And when it's 110 and 95% humidity, you wear a bandana because your sweat drops down in the patient's face. That's rude. So you make adjustments in that. And I've often said, if you can do dentistry in that environment, you can do it anywhere in the world. We had tents. We had mud floors. The only time I was able to see patients is when they weren't out fighting. We didn't take the dentistry to them. Well, we did a couple of times, but that's a different story. We had an opportunity to do several things a little bit out of the ordinary. So I wound up being awarded 2 Bronze Stars for my service in Vietnam. One was a plane that crashed on our landing strip, and the plane was all nosed up and smoking, but it wasn't on fire. Harry Nastor, a physician, and I ran out, pulled the pilot out, and got him far enough away so when it burst into flames, no one was hurt. And the other one was for a period of time when either the VC or the NVA were right on our border. I mean, as far as the Lanai goes away, they're right there. And so we had to decide who was going to go home. One of our Vietnamese interpreters was brought in, Vietnamese, and brought in by an American GI who spoke Vietnamese as well as English. Okay. His wife was very, very pregnant and had been past her due date and was very much unable to pass the baby. So they brought her in. One of our physicians had taken 6 months of OBGYN residency or rotation. So he's ministering to the lady and indicating that he has to do this and do that to make the delivery of the baby successful. 2 helicopters land with 12 wounded, and they come piling in the door. So the physicians jump up, go to the GIs that are wounded, and one of the fellows yells over his shoulder, "Murray, put some gloves on, you're going to catch that baby." What? Wait a minute, I'm not even allowed to look there, you know. I mean, this is not right. So it becomes a clinical problem. She's very, very... I see that the head is crowning and there's just no room in the inn. There's a tiny lady with a baby that just doesn't seem to want to fit. And so they told me I had to do an episiotomy. Well, I knew what the word meant, but I was not going to do it. It's a matter of taking a scalpel and making more room in the birth canal so that the baby can come out. This just seemed more of a challenge than I was up for. And then an idea occurred. If it was numb, which I'm very good at, it wouldn't be so bad. So I ran to my dental clinic and they're yelling at me, "Come back, you coward, come back." So I went and got a syringe, loaded it all up, came in and put some Novocaine on either side of the birth canal, put the finger in and put the scalpel on the side, just made a tiny little incision, and the baby went poof. And I caught the baby over here like this and got pictures of it. So I caught the baby, came out screaming, and 3 or 4 hours later, mother and father and baby went walking off into the sunset. But yeah, we had an interesting time over that. But yeah, I caught a baby.